Sam Ansel presents What If It Was You? The story I'm about to tell you today is not just about a boy who fell into the earth. It's about a moment, buried in time, that revealed the true strength of a people. He was just helping his community, digging with purpose, when the ground gave way beneath him. What happened next would be remembered for generations. This is a story of unity, of courage, and of the quiet, ancient wisdom that lives in those who listen to the land. But it's more than a story from the past. It's a reflection of the world we live in now. A reminder that the earth still speaks, and that we are still being called to respond. So take a breath. Because what happened to him could happen to any of us. Chapter 1: The Voice of the Earth. I was just a boy with a purpose: to serve my people by working with the land, inspired by the wisdom of those who came before, to shape a better present and future. My name is Waya. It means wolf, in the language of my people. I was born many generations ago near the mighty river Mississippi, known today as the Mississippi. Even as a child, I could hear the voice of the earth. I read the winds, the silence of trees, the rise and fall of birds in the sky. Our people were not separate from the land, we were a part of it. Our city, Cahokia, was built from the ground, not with stone or clay, but with earth shaped by thousands of hands over hundreds of years. We grew corn, beans, squash, and sunflowers. We hunted deer and turkey, fished catfish from the waters, and gathered wild berries and nuts through the seasons. We lived in wooden homes with thatched roofs, arranged around plazas that echoed with music, laughter, prayer, and trade. Our families were organized in clans, each with roles handed down through tradition: leaders, builders, healers, artists, and spiritual guides. The tallest of our mounds, what some now call Monk's Mound, housed our high chief, not as a ruler of power, but a servant of balance. But not all was easy. The land warned us of change. Rain became heavier. The river grew restless. Floods and erosion began to wear away our sacred mounds and fertile gardens. Rebuilding was not enough anymore. We needed to transform. So I listened to the wind. Chapter 2: When the River Moved. So I listened to the wind. And in its current, I heard the whispers of the old ones, the voices of our ancestors, carried through time by the breath of the trees, the pull of the river, and the stillness between each footstep on the soil. The elders gathered beneath the sacred oak, as we had done for generations when balance had to be restored. Their eyes, weathered by years and sun, held the wisdom of the cycles, the coming and going of seasons, of rain and drought, of loss and rebuilding. "It is no longer enough to mend," one of them said. "Now we must grow wiser than the storm." I was still young, but I was not alone. The youth of Cahokia were many, strong in body, hungry in spirit. We listened. We asked questions. And we offered our hands to help. We began by observing the way water moved, where it pooled, where it carried the earth away. We walked the length of our farmlands, traced the scars of old floods with our fingers in the dirt, and listened for the signs of stress in the land itself. Then we acted. We braided reeds into thick mats and layered them with compacted earth and clay, stronger than anything we'd used before. We carved terraces along slopes to slow the flow of water and dug winding channels to guide it away from where our families slept. We didn't build taller, we built wiser. The people worked together with a quiet rhythm. Grandmothers planting deep-rooted herbs. Children bringing baskets of gravel. Hunters hauling logs for new embankments. It wasn't a task. It was a song. And we were all part of its harmony. For the first time in many cycles, the fear of loss gave way to something new: trust. Not in luck, but in each other, in the earth, and in the guidance we had inherited. Still, the land would test us. But we were no longer just rebuilding. We were becoming something new. Chapter 3: A City Reinvented. The changes we made to the land were not only physical, they reshaped the spirit of Cahokia. As the new channels redirected the floods and the terraced farms held firm against the rains, something beautiful began to happen. People from distant lands started to arrive. Traders from the eastern forests brought beads carved from shells, From the west came stone tools sharper than we had ever seen. Families journeyed downriver with stories, medicines, and seeds unlike any we had known. We shared food with strangers. We taught them how we listened to the land, and in return, they taught us the names of stars we had never traced before. And slowly, our city became a living heart. Each beat echoed through the plazas at sunrise, when the drums sounded. Smoke rose from the sacred fires, blending prayers with the morning mist. Children danced between the gardens, and elders sang stories of the wind. New homes were raised with joy, not fear. Built in circles, open to the sky, with space not only for sleeping but for dreaming. We were still builders, still hunters, still farmers. But now we were something else, too, keepers of rhythm. The rhythm of the land. The rhythm of one another. And this rhythm did not belong to any one person. It moved through us all. Even our leaders began to step down from their mounds more often, to walk with the people, to learn from the quiet wisdom of the youngest and the oldest alike. We no longer waited for disaster to strike to call the elders. Now, they sat beside the youth at evening meals. Wisdom flowed in every direction. And in the center of it all stood the new Cahokia, not a city of domination, but of devotion. To each other. To the future. To the land that remembered everything we offered it in love. Chapter 4. Wisdom in Service. In a city that now pulsed with life, it would have been easy to rise above others, to lead from above, to command from a place of distance. But that was not the way of my people. And it was not the way of the land. As I grew into the role of guide, the truth became clear to me. Leadership was not about control. It was about presence. It was about service. So I walked. Each morning, I walked the edges of our planted fields, brushing my fingers across the corn stalks. I spoke with the farmers, learned which insects were troubling the squash, which herbs were thriving best in shade. In the forest, I listened to the hunters, not just their words, but their silences. I noticed where the deer had stopped coming and where new birds were nesting. I asked the elders what this might mean. With the children, I sat beneath trees and watched the wind move through the branches. I taught them that every tree is a teacher, every bird a message, every storm a reminder of humility. At night, I joined the stargazers, laying on woven mats near the river, learning again the constellations I had once traced as a boy. And when the young asked questions, I never answered too quickly. I let them think. Let them feel. Let them listen. Because it was not my job to give them the truth, but to help them remember that the truth was already inside them, passed down through blood, through soil, through breath. I taught them how to move through the forest without disturbing it. How to ask the land for permission before taking anything. How to speak to the fire, and more importantly, how to listen when the fire speaks back. The strength of Cahokia no longer came from the size of our mounds or the sharpness of our tools. It came from the calm in our decisions, the trust in our silence, the clarity in our intentions. And the greatest lesson I carried was this. To lead is to serve the balance. Not only between people and people, but between people and place. People and time. People and spirit. Chapter 5. The Day the Earth Took Chasky. Even in a city reborn, the land still tested us. One day, as we worked on expanding a water channel to better protect the center of Cahokia, the ground reminded us just how alive it truly was. Chasky was only 18. His name meant firstborn son. He was strong and steady, the kind of young man who made others move just by picking up a tool. That morning, he was digging at the narrow junction between two canals, his boots wet from the rain that had soaked the earth the night before. I was just steps away when we heard the sound. Not a cry. Not a collapse. Just the breath of the earth, pulling something in. We turned, and Chasky was gone. Where he'd stood was now a dark, gaping hole. Silence fell. But then, from below, his voice rose. "I'm not hurt," he called, calm despite the fall. "But I can't climb out. It's too steep." We rushed to the edge. The hole was deep and unstable. Every time we tried to lower something, vines, ropes, branches, the soil gave way. The walls crumbled. The entrance was too narrow, the depth too far. Hours passed. The sun began to slide behind the mounds. Some people grew nervous, others restless. But not Chasky. From deep below, his voice remained steady. He encouraged us. He described the shape of the hollow space, the places where the air flowed more strongly, signs of where the land might open again. He remembered the teachings. He paid attention to the earth's breath. He waited. Then someone said, "We don't need to reach down. We need to pull up, together." That changed everything. We formed a line, arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder, from the trench to the nearest wooden platform. Dozens of us. Young and old. Hunters and healers. Children passed down bundles of woven fiber and bark. Elders guided the knots. Slowly, inch by inch, we built a lift strong enough to carry him. When it finally touched the bottom, Chasky tied himself in. And as one, we pulled. Our feet dug into the dirt. Our hands strained. Muscles shook. But the chain held. Then light. Chasky's head emerged from the darkness like the sun rising after a long night. Cheers broke the still air. Laughter. Tears. And arms, so many arms, reached out to hold him. He was safe. From that day forward, he was no longer just Chasky. He was Nwazi Hota, the one who rose from the earth. And none of us would ever forget what we learned that day. Chapter 6. A Lesson Etched in Soil. What happened with Chasky changed us. Not just because he survived, but because of how he was saved. It wasn't strength that pulled him out. It wasn't cleverness. It wasn't a single person. It was everyone. From the smallest child who passed along a stick of bark, to the elder whose voice calmed the panic, each one was a piece of the solution. And together, we became something greater than ourselves. We didn't need to say it aloud, but from that day on, we worked differently. Every wall we raised, every trench we carved, every path we laid held a deeper sense of purpose. The memory of that human chain was present in the way we moved, in sync, in care, in trust. We began to say, "When one of us falls, the rest must become the ladder." It became part of our teachings. A story told at the evening fire, repeated in quiet conversations, etched into the designs on baskets and carvings. Not as a tale of danger, but of harmony. Even children playing near the edge of the fields would form chains just to reach a stick stuck in the mud. And every time they succeeded, they would cheer, not for themselves, but for the circle. The lesson was simple. Strength isn't in the individual. It's in the circle. Wisdom isn't just inherited. It's shared. No one rescues themselves alone. And no one is truly lost when many hearts pull together. That moment made us remember who we really were. Not just survivors of floods. Not just builders of mounds. We were people who lift. We were people who hold. We were people who remember that the earth gives and takes, and we must meet her with both humility and unity. Chapter 7. The Legacy of Listening. The seasons passed. The terraces held. The gardens bloomed. The channels guided the floods gently to the outer fields. And the people of Cahokia moved with a kind of grace that only comes from living in alignment. We had become a strong people, not because we had conquered, but because we had learned how to listen. I grew older. My walks became slower. My words became fewer. But strangely, in that quiet, I began to hear more than ever before. The wind told me things. The soil held memories of every hand that had turned it. The birds returned to the same branches, year after year, like guardians of old promises. At night, I would sit near the fire and watch the faces of the children as they listened to the stories being passed down. Not only my stories, but the ones they would one day tell. And I would smile, not because I believed I had taught them enough, but because I knew they had learned how to listen. They had learned to listen to the shift in the wind, to the tilt of the stars, to the silence between questions, and most importantly, to the voice within themselves, the one passed down through generations, through breath, through heartbeat, through soil. Cahokia no longer needed mounds to be strong. Its strength was in its people, their presence. their peace, their understanding that wisdom lives not only in the tongue, but in the pause that surrounds it. Even visitors from faraway lands would come and feel it. The rhythm of a city that listened to itself, to the earth, to the past, and to the future all at once. And I knew then, everything we had built, everything we had healed, everything we had saved, including Chasky, including ourselves, was because we learned how to listen deeply. And to trust what we heard. Chapter 8, The Message for You. Now, as my body returns to the soil and my spirit drifts with the wind, I leave this message for you, whoever and wherever you are. You don't have to live near the Mississippi to feel connected to this story. You don't have to come from my people to carry this truth. If you listen to the land, care for your community, and plant something today, something useful, something healing, you are part of this story. You are part of this legacy. From the southern forests to the Alaskan ice, from the driest deserts to the most crowded cities, we all belong to one great web of life. The land gives to us. And we must give back, not only for ourselves but for those yet to come. You might not build mounds with your hands, but you build something each day, with your thoughts, your words, your choices. When one among you falls, may you become the latter. When the storms come, may you not only rebuild, but transform. And when the wind whispers, may you pause and listen, because the earth still speaks. She always has. She always will. And we are at our best, not when we master her, but when we remember we are made of her. Because the earth still speaks. She always has. She always will. And we are at our best, not when we master her, but when we remember we are made of her. In Cahokia, we learn to listen to the land, to the winds, to the river, to the silence between each season. And now, in your own time, there is something ancient waiting to be remembered in you too. There is one element that carries messages, just like the earth once did. That element is water. The same way we once read the soil and the sky, water can read you. Your breath. Your focus. Your desire to heal. So I invite you. Awaken this natural ability to communicate with life. To guide your water with direction and clarity, before it enters your body. This isn't a belief. It's a practice. A joyful one. In a method where you'll solarize water with intention each day, and grow a plant from seed, you'll witness with your own eyes what the water becomes, inside you, and outside you. Let the plant be your mirror. Let the ritual be your reminder. You were born to nurture, and to be nurtured. If that speaks to your heart, the first link in the description may already be waiting for you. There you'll find everything you need to begin this 21-day journey with water, light, and life. If this story moves something inside you, please like this video. Subscribe for more stories that reconnect us with ancient wisdom. And share in the comments, what have you done for your land, your water, your people? You didn't find this story by accident. It found you. Because now is your time. Your time to remember. Your time to choose. Your time to plant something, within and around you. Let us be like the boy from Cahokia, grounded in the past, wise in the present, and brave for the future.